You woke up this morning and went to work. You made money. You feel like you earned something. You did. But a version of that money was already gone before you ever saw it. Not because of bad decisions, not because of lifestyle inflation, not because of bad luck, because the system took it first, quietly, automatically, before the deposit even hit your account. And nobody in any classroom, any orientation, any onboarding ever sat you down and explained what was actually happening to your paycheck. They just handed you a form. They told you to sign it. And the number you saw at the bottom was already the smaller number. That was not a mistake. That was the design. Here's the number nobody says out loud. The average working American gives up roughly 5 months of their annual income to taxes. 5 months. Not a percentage on a slide, not an abstraction in a policy debate. 5 months of mornings, 5 months of commutes, 5 months of deadlines and meetings, and skipped lunches and late pickups and emails you answered on a Saturday. 5 months of your actual life given away, and not given in a way you chose, not donated, not invested, taken automatically, with your signature on a document you did not fully understand and were never really meant to. January, February, March, April, into May, you're working. The money is moving. None of it is yours yet. Not because you are broke, not because you spent it, because it belongs to something else first. Tax Freedom Day, the date when the average American has finally earned enough to cover their full annual tax burden, falls somewhere in mid-April to early May depending on the year, which means if you started working on January 1st, you crossed into actually keeping your own money sometime around Tax Freedom Day. Everything before that was labor you performed for the government, unpaid, mandatory, and presented to you as normal. You probably think you know what you pay in taxes. You probably think it is your income tax rate. You see that number, you remember it, 12%, 22%, maybe 32% if you are doing well. That is the number they let you focus on. That is the number that fits on a simple chart. What they do not put on that chart is everything else. The thing about the tax system is that it does not come at you from one direction. It comes at you from all of them at once. Federal income tax, state income tax if you live in most states, Social Security and Medicare, which together take another 7.65% of your paycheck before you see it, property tax if you own anything, sales tax on almost everything you buy, gas tax every time you fill your tank, sin taxes on alcohol and cigarettes if those are part of your life, capital gains tax if you invest and succeed, estate tax if you save enough to leave something behind, excise taxes buried inside your phone bill, your utility bills, your airline tickets, your hotel stays, tariffs baked into the price of products before they reach the shelf, inflation, which functions as a hidden tax on your savings by making every dollar you held worth less tomorrow than it was today. These do not arrive together. They do not show up on one statement with a total at the bottom. They are distributed across every financial interaction you have, scattered through enough categories and systems and moments that you never see the full picture at once. That is not an accident. An invisible tax is easier to tolerate than a visible one. A tax you never add up never produces the outrage of a tax you see clearly. The effective tax rate for the average American household, when you include all levels of taxation, is not 22%. It is not even 30%. When researchers and economists add it all up, the number comes out somewhere between 40 and 50% of income for middle-class households. Nearly half. In some states and circumstances, more than half. Half of everything you earn goes somewhere before you decide what to do with it. Half of every raise, half of every bonus, half of every year, half of every Monday through Friday for as long as you work. Think about what that means for a moment. Not abstractly, personally. Think about the last raise you got. Think about how excited you were when you heard the number. Then think about what arrived in your account. The gap between those two things is not a technicality. That gap is hours of your life that you worked and did not keep. That gap is the system operating exactly as intended. The announcement was designed to feel like a victory. The math was always more complicated than the announcement. You are taught to feel grateful for your refund. Every spring, millions of Americans celebrate getting money back from the IRS. They call it free money. They spend it like a bonus. They post about it online. And the entire framing is exactly backwards. A tax refund does not mean the government gave you something. It means you gave the government an interest-free loan all year, and they are returning the principal. You overpaid, they held the excess. They earned interest on money that should have been in your account. And when they return it, the system has been designed so thoroughly to feel like generosity that you thank them for it. That is the first trick, the refund. Make the correction feel like a gift. Make the overcollection feel like planning. Make the return of your own money feel like something the government did for you, not something they owed you. Here is the second trick. Complexity. The U.S. tax code is over 70,000 pages long. Nobody understands 70,000 pages. Nobody was supposed to. The complexity is the point. A system that nobody can fully understand is a system that nobody can fully challenge. You cannot audit what you cannot comprehend. You cannot push back on rules you cannot read. So the average person pays a professional to navigate the rules on their behalf, pays again in anxiety every April, and accepts whatever number comes out the other side because questioning it would require a degree they do not have in a language nobody speaks natively. The IRS itself estimates that Americans spend over 6 billion hours per year dealing with tax compliance. 6 billion hours? That is time not spent working, not spent with family, not spent building anything, spent decoding a system that could have been simple and was deliberately made complicated. Here's the third trick, timing. The government does not wait for you to pay them. They collect first. The withholding system means your employer takes money out of every paycheck before you receive it and sends it directly to the government on your behalf. You never had it. You never held it. You never made a decision about it. It was extracted before the money was yours in any practical sense. If the withholding system worked in reverse, if you received your full paycheck every week and wrote a check to the government once a year, the political conversation about taxation would look completely different. People would feel the number in a way they do not feel it now. The timing is not neutral. The invisibility is not accidental. The system was built so that the extraction happens before you have the chance to notice what was extracted. Now, here's the part that will sit with you. The middle class pays the most in taxes, not the wealthy. Not as an absolute number, the wealthy pay more in absolute dollars, but as a percentage of real economic activity and as a share of practical burden. The ultra-wealthy hold most of their wealth in assets, not income, stocks, real estate, ownership stakes. These are not taxed until sold and are often structured to defer or minimize that moment indefinitely. Billionaires can borrow against their assets, live on loans, and pay back those loans when they die in a way that sidesteps capital gains entirely. This is not illegal, it is engineered. There are entire law firms and accounting practices whose only purpose is to find the legal architecture that separates wealth from the taxation you are told applies to everyone equally. Meanwhile, you, with a W-2, have no architecture. You have withholding, you have the standard deduction, you have maybe a 401k contribution and a few credits if the situation is right. You pay the listed rate because you do not have the resources to engineer around the listed rate. The wealthy do not pay the listed rate. They pay the engineered rate, and the engineered rate is almost always lower. Equal treatment under the law applies to the rules on paper. It does not apply to access to the tools that shape what those rules actually cost you. The payroll tax is one of the quietest stories in American finance. Social Security takes 6.2% of your wages. Medicare takes 1.45%. Together, that is 7.65%. Your employer matches it, which sounds generous until you realize that employer match comes out of what they would otherwise pay you. It is part of your total compensation, diverted before the calculation. The self-employed pay both sides, the full 15.3%, and that number sits in plain sight for anyone who has ever run their own business. It is the moment most people first understand that the employment relationship hides part of the tax burden by burying the employer side inside your compensation structure. Social Security is also means-tested in reverse in one critical way. The 6.2% applies only to income up to a cap, around $160,000 as of recent years. Above that, no more Social Security tax. So a person earning $80,000 pays 6.2% on all of it. A person earning $800,000 pays 6.2% on the first $160,000 and nothing on the remaining $640,000. As a percentage of income, the lower earner pays more into Social Security than the higher earner. The system designed to protect working people is structured to take proportionally more from them than from the wealthy. This is not hidden. It is just not the part of the tax conversation that gets attention. Nobody told you about the concept of tax drag. Every year that your money sits in a taxable account, a share of its growth belongs to the government. You invest well, your portfolio climbs, and a portion of that gain is owed the moment you sell. If you need the money in a bad year, you still owe taxes on gains you made in a good year. The drag is structural. It applies to your savings in ways it does not apply to a billionaire holding unrealized appreciation in a private company that may never trigger a taxable event. Your wealth-building tools are taxed in real time. Theirs can sit untouched for generations. Property tax is one of the most stable and least discussed forms of taxation because it is boring. It does not fluctuate with income. It just arrives every year as long as you own the home, which means even after you pay off your mortgage, you still cannot own your home free and clear because the tax continues as long as you hold it. In high-cost states, property taxes on a modest home can run thousands of dollars per year for the rest of your life. You do not own the home in the way the word ownership implies. You hold it under a permanent annual obligation that never terminates. Stop paying, and the government can eventually take the property. That is a condition of ownership nobody mentions at closing. Here is what happens when you put the numbers together honestly. Say you earn $65,000 per year. Federal income tax takes approximately $7,000 to $9,000 depending on your situation. Payroll taxes take another $4,975. State income tax, say you are in a state with a 5% rate, takes another $3,250. Sales tax on your purchases, assuming you spend roughly $30,000 after savings, might average 6 to 8%, taking another $1,800 to $2,400. Property tax, or the equivalent embedded in rent, gas tax, phone bill excise taxes, add several hundred to a few thousand more. Before you have made a single financial decision, before you have eaten out once or bought a car or taken a vacation, the total extraction sits somewhere between $18,000 and $22,000 on a $65,000 income. That is between 27 and 34% of gross income before any spending decisions are made. Not the rate on a slide, the actual number, the number nobody adds up for you. And none of it gets voted on directly. You do not cast a ballot on your withholding percentage. You do not approve the payroll tax rate. You do not vote yes or no on the sales tax every time you buy groceries. You voted somewhere for representatives who vote on legislation that creates systems administered by agencies that set rules that determine how much is taken and when and how. The connection between your money and any decision you made is long and indirect and designed to remain that way. Accountability at a sufficient distance becomes invisible. And invisible accountability is no accountability at all. What actually changes when you understand this? First, the refund stops feeling like found money. You start adjusting your withholding so your money stays with you through the year and earns what it can before you owe it. A tax refund is not a win. It is a zero-interest loan you gave the government. Getting that money in your paycheck instead means 12 months of its potential rather than one lump sum in April. Second, you stop accepting your tax bill as fixed. Most people pay whatever the return says because they do not know there's anything else to do. There is. Tax-advantaged accounts, retirement contributions, health savings accounts, business deductions if any part of your income comes from self-employment, timing of asset sales, charitable giving structures. None of this requires a billionaire's lawyers. Some of it requires a good accountant. All of it requires understanding that the amount you pay is not the amount you owe. The amount you owe can be shaped by what you know and what you do before December 31st. Third, you start thinking about the after-tax return on everything. A raise that pushes you into a higher bracket changes the math on every dollar in that bracket. An investment that throws off ordinary income every year has a different real return than one that grows and defers the tax. Understanding where you sit in the structure, what type of income you earn, how it is taxed, and what tools apply to it is what separates people who build wealth from people who earn and wonder why the number does not grow the way they expected. Fourth, you get serious about financial flexibility. The person with 6 months of expenses saved can afford to negotiate, can afford to leave, can afford to wait. The person living paycheck to paycheck inside a system that takes 5 months of their year cannot. Cash reserves are not conservative. They are the only leverage that does not require anyone's permission or approval. In a system designed to extract continuously, the buffer is the only protection. The system was not built by accident. Every tax that runs invisibly through a bill, every withholding that happens before you see the money, every complexity that requires a professional to navigate, every capital gains rule that favors assets over wages, every payroll cap that charges a higher rate to the person earning less, all of it was designed, lobbied for, advocated over decades by people who understood exactly what they were building. The code is 70,000 pages, not because taxes are complicated by nature. It is 70,000 pages because every page represents a negotiation someone won, and most of those someones were not you. They told you freedom meant working for yourself. What the system actually built was a structure where the first 5 months of work belonged to something else by default. Every year, without a vote, without a conversation, without anyone sitting across from you and explaining what the signature at the bottom of the form actually meant for the rest of your working life. You cannot opt out, but you can stop pretending you do not see it. You can build systems that recover what the structure allows you to recover. You can hold the buffer that makes the extraction survivable. You can understand your money well enough that the complexity stops being a wall and starts being a map. Because the people who designed the map knew exactly where they were going. The only question is whether you learn to read it.